Always a pleasure to welcome in our Daily Faceoff prospect analyst, Stephen Ellis. A few different areas we want to hit on with you today from around the hockey world. And I want to start in the NHL. The Columbus Blue Jackets claimed Dante Fabro, and that had some people raising an eyebrow going, another young defenseman to maybe take away minutes from David Jiricek. I guess I want to know, why has he fallen out of favor in Columbus? And do you still believe in his upside as a guy who went 6th overall in 2022?
Well, quickly start with Fabro. I'm a big fan of his. I've been a fan of his for a while. I feel like he's got a good opportunity to be a top 4 defenseman pretty quickly with Columbus. But then that means David Jiricek's not going to be. And I think you look at him heading into the season. There was a lot of the Blue Jackets defensemen that are a little older. You feel like, okay, this is the perfect opportunity for Jiricek to come in. But, this is a different coaching staff, a different management group than the one that drafted Jiricek. How committed are they going to be to him? I feel like from watching him, it's a player that's got a ton of skill. We've seen that for sure already, especially in AHL, where it looked like he kind of outgrew there, where it feels like he's too afraid to make a mistake because the Blue Jackets over the last 2 years have shown a willingness to say, okay, you're going to be in the press box, or, oh, we're sending you back down to the minors. And it feels like he's not going out there and playing his game, which is in a lot of cases, taking risks, making big plays, rushing the puck up the ice, things we just aren't seeing right now. It feels like in his own zone, he's just not doing a whole lot. He's standing around a lot, watching a bit too much. I still think there's a ton of skill, but you do have to wonder if he's going to be able to develop into the top prospect many expect him to be, if it's going to be somewhere else.
All right, let's talk another recent top pick, and that is Jonathan Lekkerimäki of the Vancouver Canucks, who made his NHL debut this week. We've had a limited viewing of him in North America because of the way his career has unfolded to this point, only coming over at the end of last season. What's his ceiling?
This is a guy that I think is going to be a top 6 player for the Canucks. And I think, we're seeing that he's going to be playing in the top line with the Canucks. And I think that's going to be really exciting to see what he could do there. And he's a goal scorer. That's the thing. It looked like a couple years ago when he played in the Allsvenskan in the second tier Swedish league, where he only put up 3 goals in just under 30 games. It just looked like he wasn't playing with any confidence. And then he went to the World Juniors, same issue, just wasn't shooting the puck, wasn't creating anything dangerous. And it felt like he just kind of fell off a cliff there. Now we're looking here, this past year, he had just under 20 goals in the top Swedish league, which is very difficult to do as a U20 player. Then he goes out, he's the MVP of the World Juniors. I thought it should have been Cutter Gauthier, but whatever. Still goes out there, scores 7 goals, shot from just about everywhere, was great on the power play. Such a good player. I've said this many times on this show, when you've got a guy who loves to shoot the puck and loves to score, you need that guy's confidence to be at an all-time high, because shooting is such a mental thing. You could see guys who struggle and they're not scoring, and all of a sudden they're trying different things, gripping their stick differently, and it falls apart. But what we've seen from Lekkerimäki in the AHL this year, this is a guy that deserved a shot in the NHL, and I'm very excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, let's see if some of that confidence can rub off on, I don't know, another Swede and Elias Pettersson in Vancouver. Switching gears to the NHL Draft 2026. So not this June, but the following. You were recently at the World Under 17s in Sarnia, and there is a 6'4" defenseman from Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta, who seems to be turning some heads. Who is that?
Well, I'll give you credit, Frank, for being the guy to really kind of push me to watch him a bit more. But it's Keaton Verhoeff out of the Victoria Royals. It's been really fun watching him this year. I think, I got to talk to him at the under 17s, and I said, hey, I noticed you were playing goalie a few years ago. And he said around the time he was 12, 13 years old, he switched from primarily playing goalie during the season to being a defenseman. And part of that was, he said he wanted to impact the game a bit more with the puck. Now, I'd say goalies are probably the most impactful position, because they're the ones who can lose a game or win a game. But when it comes to Verhoeff, the fact he's been able to transition into such a great defenseman at a young age is a really good sign. You see those numbers there, he's on pace for 50 points. As a draft -1 player, that's pretty hard to do. We are seeing a lot more offensive defensemen in the WHL, but that's really not his game. You see there, he does 5 goals, but it's still that shutdown defenseman, still blocking shots, hitting players, being that physical presence that really makes him intriguing. So we're going to hear him drafted quite high in 2026 if he continues at this trajectory.
So when he would have tried out for the Brick tournament, he tried out as a goalie.
And he was cut, and then he switched to defense.
Wow, that is quite the story. Shout out to Fort Saskatchewan. Shout out to our producer, Pat Puff. Another good Fort Saskatchewan product. Last one I got for you. I want to talk about Gabe Perreault a little bit. You look at his stat line and his numbers that he's putting up in college. They continue to be very, very impressive. What do the Rangers have here in a guy that they got 23rd overall a few years back?
They got a special prospect, and you can look at the guys that he's playing with. James Hagen's the top prospect for 25. Last year he played with Will Smith as a centerman. He's been with Ryan Leonard for quite a long time now. But I think the biggest thing what we saw of Perreault when he was drafted was a lot of the same criticism of he was standing around, he'd go there and pick up the rebounds, he'd score these goals. He had 132 points, which is a single season NTDP record. You don't do that by accident, but it still felt like guys like Will Smith and Ryan Leonard were doing all the work. But we saw last year, whether it be the World Juniors where he put up, I think it was 10 points and he had a lot of assists, or whether it be that 60-point output that he had in college as a freshman, this is a player that just transitioned into this play-driving machine. A big concern for me and many others heading into his draft was he wasn't a good skater. That doesn't feel like that's a problem now. He's a lot more explosive. He's, much better on the back checking element. He's a more well-rounded player. And I think he could be a top 6 player for the Rangers immediately once the college season's over, assuming he does sign with the Rangers right away. And I think he will. He's ready for the NHL.
Love it. Always appreciate the insight, Steven. Chat with you next week.
Thanks so much.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.